of the book Prince Icon with a record 9 photographers here tonight to speak. Sophie. Oh. So, you want to go? Dance. Wonder which one is Sophie. Sophie began her artistic journey began in France in the 1980s, during which she worked on set and costume design, managed Prince Paris's property, and worked as his personal assistant. Since then, she has contributed to the Cannes Film Festival projects, launched a boutique workshop, and earned national recognition for an imaginative table setting titled In the Clouds. Her passion for photography and capturing life's unique moments remains. Please welcome all the way from the south of France. Do you want to say a few words about your dealings and when you worked with Prince?
Okay, bonjour d'abord. I'm sorry.
Bonjour.
So, first of all, excuse my English because I'm not practicing English every day anymore. Should I stand up? Good. So, good afternoon. What can I say? Of course, it has been a very exceptional journey and experience to be working for him for so many years and in different areas besides doing these photographies. And it has been also very important for me as a human person because I got the chance to relate to him in different ways and to see him as a person also, not just an artist on stage. And I will never forget this. What else can I say? So let's keep Paisley Park in our arts. That's what I want to say.
Jamie Steinfeld came all the way from California to be with us this week. He's a self-taught photographer originally from Prince's hometown of Minneapolis. He has captured legends like Madonna, Willie Nelson, Miles Davis, Dee Ramone, and many, many more, including The Cure, he told me, which is one of my favorite bands of all time. His photo of Bob Dylan was published by Rolling Stone in 1986, and his work has appeared in Time, Spin, Playboy, the LA Times, and hundreds of other publications. It's LA Music Awards Photographer of the Year in 1998 and 2007, Jimmy Steinfeld.
Well, it's exciting and a pleasure to be here in London at Iconic Images, and I want to thank everyone from Iconic Images for inviting me and for putting the book together. And Steve, thank you, Steve Parke. I want to do a special thank you to you and all these other photographers. So, I mean, being associated now, affiliated with the people that I've admired for years is really a very special thing. I was just lucky to have been born and raised in Minneapolis, and of course aware of Prince, who we all miss, but we have his music forever. And the first time I photographed Prince was on 8/3/83. That's an easy way to remember, and that's the night that he recorded Purple Rain. And I was there and photographed that show, so that's a special memory I have. And this photo here with the guitar is from Purple Rain, the tour. And I'm sure I'll have more to say later, but let's pass the baton to the other distinguished photographers here. And thanks for having me in your lovely city.
Born right here in London, our next photographer has been working since 1978 for magazines, newspapers, publishers, and record companies. He has published books for Random House and Hat and Beard Press, which is his latest book. I recommend it highly, called Black Cord. Yep. And his works reside in the collections of the National Portrait Gallery, the V&A, the ICA, and the National Museum of African American History and Culture in Washington, D.C. Please welcome David Cornwell.
I'm not used to being this side of the microphone, but anyway, thank you all for coming, and thanks for Iconic Images and ACC Art Books for the great book and exhibition. I've come more from an editorial side, so I was shooting prints, there's the black and white one over there, colour one up there, so for sort of the New York Times and New Musical Express. So it was, I came across it on a different way in that you get 3 songs basically and then thrown out. So it's like, please be good and let's have some good lighting. And sometimes it was good and sometimes it wasn't so good. But Prince was such a great performer and had that brilliant sort of magnetic quality to him that you really couldn't go wrong, however much of a challenge it was. And there's not that many musicians, but he was certainly one of them that you just felt shivers go down your back. And it still does that when I sort of think about it now. So here's to Prince and enjoy the rest of the day.
Toronto born, New York City based, began his career in mid-1970s, capturing names like Bruce Springsteen, Elvis Costello, Blondie, The Who, Stevie Ray Vaughan, The Police, Queen, the Rolling Stones, and hundreds of others. Please welcome all the way from the U.S., Patrick Harvin.
Thank you all for coming. Thank you to Carrie and Stefania and the others here at Iconic Gallery and ACC Books. This is remarkable. Really glad you're all here to celebrate this. Prince is one of the many artists that I worked with, but I think one of the most iconic, as this show tells, and you can see through history, the last many years, even after his passing, how many followers he has and how important music was to those people. So, this was the opening. The red one on the corner is mine, and it was the opening of the Purple Rain tour, and he was really not as well known. The Purple Rain thing opened up a huge door that never closed. So before then, became a cult following, and then there were songs like Red Corvette, and of course, Tony preaching in the choir, you know all that. But after that, after this was huge. The movie, the tour, the record, it just went through the roof. So being part of helping to show this to the world is really important. And now, 40 years later, more than 40, November 4th was when that was taken in 1984, we're here celebrating Prince again, so talk about longevity. Thank you very much, and enjoy.
Welsh born and worked as a social photographer in England and the US throughout the 1980s and 90s. He's contracted by such publications as Vanity Fair, the New York Observer, and the Times. His unique and beautiful body of work has filled several books, page 3, and offers insights into parts of society that most rarely have access to. He has photographed Queen Elizabeth, Prince Charles, and most importantly, Prince. It's
Thank you everyone for coming. I only really had 2 minutes photographing Prince. He rushed into the party. I took a picture. My flash didn't go off. It's that picture on the wall. Luckily, I still got an image of him. And then he walked past the sort of receiving line at the party. No one dared speak to him. He had 2 bodyguards. And then he walked through the whole thing and stood at this kind of interesting part of the room. He was underneath a Julian Schnabel painting in a kind of, just the graphic was very strong. I got out my big camera to do a picture, and his bodyguards, one of whom it turns out was his half-brother, stopped me, but then I did a quick picture, which is also in the book. And I got this feeling he'd dressed up for the party. He'd obviously made an effort, but then he wasn't really talking to anyone. He seemed quite shy, but I was a fan already, so, and that was my only interaction with him. just really with his bodyguards.
Our next photographer's journey began in the UK press. For 35 years, he's chronicled the world of music, from recording studios to the top of the pops, and has been on tour with David Bowie, Tina Turner, and Mariah Carey. Welcome, Mark Allen.
Welcome here to this exhibition. I feel really, really privileged to be part of it. I didn't photograph Prince many times, 5 or 6 times. Luckily, by the time he'd become massive, I'd put in the work and got myself working for a well-known tabloid, the Daily Mirror. In those days, you had to have that kind of access to go and photograph him when you wanted to go abroad and do it. So I went to Belgium, Monaco, photographed him in London. Those are my pictures at the back, the shiny ones there. I remember with the one with him holding his fingers up, wearing a kind of blouse, that I was allowed onto a kind of ramp to photograph him with the audience behind me and audience in front of me. And then the security decided we weren't allowed to be there. So they were pulling us like this, trying to get us down off the thing the whole time. So it was lucky we got anything, but that was one of the pictures. Also, working for the Mirror, we were followed by a pack of other photographers, and the junior cub reporter for The Sun was one Piers Morgan. Wonder what happened to him. Anyway, yeah, those are what I've got here, and I hope you like all the other pictures, because some of these are absolutely iconic.
One of our closest friends and collaborators, this next panelist is among British longest-standing press photographers. Figures who have personally asked for copies of his photographs range from Michael Jackson to Bill Clinton, while a copy of his iconic portrait of the Queen is held for posterity by the Royal Photographic Collection at the request of Her Majesty. It's Greg Brennan.
Coming to our gallery today. I photographed Prince a lot in my time. I've been a photographer for the past 35 years, but I took a slightly different approach. I came into it in 1990, and by then he was already a megastar, as you all know. So he was extremely difficult to get access to, as Mark just explained. I did him officially at concerts around the world. I shot his first comeback concert in '98 in Marbella to a crowd of 8,000 people in the brewery. And I was the only photographer that got into that show. I'll tell a story about that a bit later on. So I'm responsible for this picture here on the wall, and I'm going to tell you a story about this one too. This was quite the capture this night, but I approached him first as a fan. Obviously I grew up as a kid in the 80s in California. A lot of you guys were already distinguished photographers by then. So I came into it quite late, but I made myself known, and I'm looking forward to telling you some of these stories tonight.
I hope this is true. This photographer was 15 years old when he used a fake press card to get into the famous bed-in held by John Lennon and Yoko Ono.
Wow, that's true.
Yeah. Okay. It was the start of something special. Since then, he has worked with artists such as David Bowie, Michael Jackson, Kate Bush, Blondie, Leonard Cohen, and many, many others. Joining us all the way from Amsterdam, please welcome Gobert J.
I'm very honored to be here as a photographer from home. I was very lucky to be at the first show of Prince in Detroit at this Purple Rain tour. It was possible because I was a photographer for Dutch magazines and for record companies, but Holland is a small country and it's different to get abroad. But I was lucky to photograph all these people she mentioned in the past for international magazines and record companies. So after shoots with Vanity, Apollonia, and Sheila E., the people invited me to be as a guest at the first concert, at the openers concert. And because I had this pass of a VIP and accessible area, yeah, they just gave it to me, yeah, I'm sorry. But that gave me the opportunity to shoot the whole concert. And I was very surprised no other photographers were around me. I was the only one in front of the stage, and I didn't realize at that moment how thankful I should be. It was later on I realized, thank God I was there, and I still keep that as one of my most beautiful memories. That's it.
Last but not least, the man who's actually taking photographs while talking about Our final panelist hails from the East Coast of the U.S., an award-winning illustrator, designer, and photographer. He worked for Prince for 13 years as his in-house art director at Paisley Park, doing everything from designing album covers and hand-painting guitars to enlisting every spare pair of hands to melt candles for an impromptu music video. Please welcome Steve Parke.
You know, Gobert's story resonates with me. He got into stuff professionally. I kind of snuck my way into stuff and was lucky enough at an early age to be doing some photography, those concert stuff, which is sitting in a box at home somewhere. But that gave me the confidence when Prince asked me, he said, "Have you ever shot photos?" And I said, "Yes." He didn't check. He just said, "No." And, you know, he gave me that opportunity. So I was not, like, my photography thing was like something that I loved to do for myself. It was fun to do. I never in a million years would have thought that this is where it would have ever ended up. That's what's part of what I got to do creatively. So I thank him for all the opportunities, and that one was a special one, and especially with these guys, everything on the walls is amazing. It blows me away. I love seeing it. I was a huge fan, so for me, it's like I went to that show. Stuck my camera in that one. Not that one in particular, but in general. And Sophie's work, I love her work. I've seen some of these, and you'll notice this too. I've seen these in like old rock and soul magazines, but they were, you know, crappy quality. Here you get to see the real thing. So I feel thrilled to be here, and I love your city, by the way. I'm going to be here. I'm going to be here very happy. So thank you all. You mean as far as an individual musician?
The individual musicians that were important to him, that you...
Well, okay, so the people we discussed a lot were groups like Return to Forever. You know, in high school, Earth, Wind & Fire was a big, you know, that's who they wanted to beat. Like, we're going to beat Earth, Wind & Fire. And, but we listened to a lot of Return to Forever, actually. He kind of dug the, I guess it was like 70s prog jazz, basically. And those kind of artists, he veered towards, but we'd listen to Sade, and he just listened to Sade, like, for days, because Sade you can listen to for days. So it's hard. He had a lot of variety of tastes. I think sometimes when he was looking at band members, he was looking about what they could bring to the table for him, so that would be a different thing. And when I mentioned Victor Wooten earlier, he was someone that I was into, and Prince asked me about it one day, and of course he's like, "Oh, is he in a band?" And I'm like, "Well, I know what that question means." And then he said, I said, "Yeah, he's in a band." And he said, "Can you bring it in?" I said, "Sure." And it was Bela Fleck and the Flecktones, and I don't know how many of you know Bela Fleck and the Flecktones, but Bela Fleck is a banjo player. They play really interesting, but also really weird music into a lot of people's ear. And when he put the CD in, he pressed the button, and the first thing was a banjo, and he jumped right back up and like pressed the next button. Because he heard Victor's music, which is more on the funky side. Like, it's got that rhythmic thing going more than Bela's. I mean, Bela's has it, but it's all over the map. And then he did, in fact, have the Wooten brothers come out and play, and I think he would have pulled Victor into his band if he didn't already have kind of like 800 other gigs, you know. So I mean, the bottom line is this: I think he could probably listen to musicians and hear what they could bring to what he did, and that's what he was looking for. So that would be to put a supergroup together. It would be his supergroup, obviously. As far as structure, this is an easy question. No, there was no structure to anything we did, unless there was an outside entity coming in. We did have, for Notorious magazine, the shot we did where he got free on his stomach. They had an art director come in for that. It was a 6 a.m. call. Crazy. I mean, that didn't mean anything. That meant I was just still up. And so, no, it was very impromptu. Everything was very impromptu. Crazy kind of. As far as the other part, inspirational music, well, I got to listen to him playing the piano parts for a piano and microphone in the atrium right outside my door the entire time he was recording it. That was pretty inspirational. During the Truth photo shoot, which unfortunately most of that got lost, except for the cover shot, he was playing guitar the entire, like acoustic guitar, like blues guitar, the entire time we were shooting. Yeah, that was inspirational. So pretty much, you know, I mean, like I said, we listened to music together, and it was just nice to have that in the background, something to talk about. But getting to hear him play on a regular basis in kind of unusual ways was, as a matter of fact, I am 90% sure that was him rewarding me when I was doing a good job. He'd call me down to the studio, and I'd get to listen to whatever he was doing. And yeah, if I was tired, I was no longer tired after 5 minutes of that. So he knew.
Well, special memories. Yeah, I got loads of special memories with people. It's not because they were beautiful, but they were very kind, very. Yes. What can I say? I mean, they were beautiful. I had a chance to photograph them beautifully. The manager, Steve Parke, was very happy with the pictures. They asked me to go on tour with them. Is that a little bit of the questions?
Yeah,
and then I got more and more involved in these women around Prince, and yeah, well, okay, well, sometimes you do more than just a photograph, and therefore they invited me. I mean, and there was, I mean, I'm so jealous of you, Steve. you were able to be so close with him, because, you know,
I second that.
I'm jealous. It's impossible not to love the man Prince. I mean, I just met him 5 minutes before the concert in his dressing room, and I don't know. Some people don't need words, you know. He was kind. He was friendly. He was shy. He was a lovely person. I can imagine that all these people here, they love Prince. We all love Prince in a way. And especially after the concert, we were in the suite with all the, you know, what Prince always does. After the concert, it was all taped, and in his dressing room at 3 or 4 at night, they played the whole show again and so Prince could tell his musicians what to do the next or not to do the next gig. And I remember that he came back from the studio. We all know that his need to make music and to go on and on and on, it never stopped. So after that first concert, I mean, everybody would go and have a relaxed time. Not Prince. He went straight to the studio to finish recording. I thought it was, I'm not sure of it, but I thought it was the Erotic City, the long version, where he came back from the studio at 2 or 3 at night, and he played it and asked everybody or not everybody, but a couple of people, he asked, what do you think of it? And, you know, I was amazed. That was it. And still, yeah, I was lucky. I wished I could, you know, I love people, I love musicians, I love to make, portrait photography is more my thing, so I was really anxious to photograph him like Steve did. So I'm jealous of you.
For my experience, I had the opportunity to live some moments where he was more a person. I mean, he was a person, but yeah, some more special moments. And I would say that this moment was one of it, and another one was after the first show in Paris for Love Sexy tour, European tour, and he asked me to get the first 10 minutes of shooting a video, because it was going to be used after editing to the promotion for the European tour. And so I had to bring it back to the house, the apartment in Paris, and to set up the video system. So after the show, he came in and we just sat down on the floor, on the carpet, and he was like a kid. He was like so happy to see the first images, and he was telling me to we keep this, we don't keep that, and so all the notes for the instruction for the editing, and that time was really for me to see the person. It was really moving, yeah, I would say.
I guess I'll start with like kind of when I first met him, because that's the most nerve-wracking part. So when I got brought in to paint this stage for the Glam Slam video, I met him very briefly. He was very, very nice, but also informed me that he was leaving for Paris in 3 hours, and I had to do design very quickly for him to approve before he left. And of course, that was a tall order, but I did it, and he left. And so that was my first encounter, so I didn't have any way to gauge anything. But once he came back, and once I started working around and started being around, he was very chill with me for the most part. I mean, I kind of stayed out of his way too, to be honest. I, just tried to, not be in the way, not cause any problems. But as soon as he would, because I would watch the Love Sexy rehearsals every single day. We'd paint at night, seal the floor, let some of that terrible odor go out of this sound stage, and then they'd come in at 1 o'clock and rehearse for 8 hours every single day. And I would be there at 1 o'clock. It didn't matter if I left at 7 in the morning. At 1 o'clock, my butt was on the stage, because he would let me sit on the stage. I didn't ask. I just sat on the stage, and he never said anything. I was like, all right, fine. And I watched the whole thing. But as soon as he was that guy, he was Prince. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's it. So, and then for the rest of the time I spent with him, I mean, he would definitely have days of coming in. I kind of described it like, some days he would be the guy you would expect from what you've seen in videos, on stage, the rock and roll musician, right? Then there were days he was more like your boss. Like, it wouldn't matter what job you had, he was your boss, right? And then there were days he's sitting behind me on the computer. He's literally just sitting behind me, looking over my shoulder, we're talking about stuff. All of a sudden, it's like being friends, knowing sometimes that you have to gauge a response to a question, that, like, your friend would say one thing, and then someone who's your friend, but also your boss. You have to mitigate sort of what you might say, like, don't be really super honest, be mostly honest. So yeah, I mean, he was all those things, and I'd say in the mid-90s especially, I noticed he was very relaxed at that time. And I don't know if it was coincidental that it came around the time that he got out from Warner Brothers and seemed to be on a mission to, I'd say 3 albums worth of material was someone trying to prove, like, hey, I said I want it out, and I'm going to show you why, So he was on a little bit of a mission, but at the same time, knowing that it was for him, I think he was way more relaxed. And I used to joke about, speaking of relaxed, was I was thinking to myself one day about that time period, and how, everybody was like, oh, Prince is so controversial, and I just remember sitting there with him, and he's basically wearing a sweater. And I'm like, oh, Prince is wearing a sweater. Like, it didn't occur to me at the time, but really, that's, for him, that was a very dressed down, very relaxed look, because he came dressed. He still had heels though, but he was very. He always came in looking how he looked. It was who he was. It wasn't an act. His sweaters were nice, of course, but I'm just saying, it's like there definitely was that person in there as well, and it just depended on what you were doing with him as how much you would see it. Wow. It's an early one.
There's no wrong answer.
I know. Because, okay, I gotta say, for me personally, Sign of the Times was amazing. That, because it so had its own environment, and he was out of focus, and I'm like, oh, how cool, because here's a guy, you see his face very close up in a lot of the earlier stuff. I mean, still dirty when I was cool, but nonetheless, I still think that Sign of the Times would probably be for me.
I would say the same. Yeah, Sign of the Times.
Is 1999 sort of Dali-esque?
It's a drawing,
yeah.
Drawing with the
For some reason, a lot of the early stuff that my friend Bolio did, of course, was amazing. But something about the 1999s.
Yeah.
The fact it's a drawing, it's a little different.
I think when I first discovered Prince, his first 2 albums, he was straight away stood out then. So I think probably that, both of those, probably, Prince, the actual album cover.
For me, the best cover would be Purple Rain, because it was mid-'80s and it was in that style of photography that so many of us were doing, which always involved dry ice. Without dry ice, you didn't have a rock and roll cover. I used so much dry ice. It went up in value. You invested in dry ice for about the first 6 months, 84 through 85, huge market value. But also it was just, this was this new guy. He was so smart, and he introduced himself perfectly. That was a great marketing thing. He had the bike, it was sexy, the mixed colors, and of course the dry ice. But that was a remarkable cover for me. And the others, there was so much artwork that came into the ones that followed that were great. But because that was everything about the new tour, the new album, being very focused and unaware of him, all came down to that artwork.
I didn't really like the very glitzy colour covers. I think I'd like to think of a picture, a new record, like a re-release with, say, Sophie's picture on the front or something like that. Sorry, did everyone hear? Maybe, I'd like to think of the next album, a collection of unreleased records with a nice black and white picture, a portrait of Prince, like Sophie's one.
Oh, sorry, it's already been said, but I like Sign of the Times, so I like motorbikes.
I'm going to go with Purple Rain also, because it was
that's what I meant.
my first introduction to Prince was Purple Rain. Everything about that 80s era was just, it was him. It was what he ultimately became. The purple bike. We all saw the movie Apollonia. Yeah, I was hooked on him after that. So definitely Purple Rain cover for me.
It's explained. Purple Rain.
So I was with an agency, we had a magazine client, but it was going to go all over the place after that. And because this tour, that photograph was taken on the first night of Purple Rain opening in Detroit, they let us shoot the whole thing. As someone mentioned earlier, David said, first 3 songs and you're out. Although we were at the Blue Line, which in a hockey arena in America is the middle of the arena. So it's a postal code away from the stage, and everything was shot with long lenses. And when we had time off, we'd go outside and do portraits of the moon. So he let us shoot the whole thing because he realized that all of these pictures that came out were going to be promoted widely. So there was no approval. But artists often do have, if artists do have approval, and if you come in an editorial way for a magazine, all the newspapers and magazines told you if you have to sign a thing for approval, walk away. Because A, we don't have the time, B, that they're not hiring you. And then it came down to contracts, which is a whole other conversation, but he didn't have that. His publicity company is called Howard Bloom in the United States, and I worked with Michael Jackson with them. And they were very specific, stand here, do this, don't do that. But after that, you had the stuff. I mean, Michael never said, yeah, I like that, prove that. He just said, well, I'd have you, Janet. But he just said, he has sign language, just didn't like the sound of his voice. So he said, there was no kind of approval or anything like that. These people who understood about mass marketing KISS, they let you shoot for half an hour this giant cartoon going on in front of you because they understood that your photographs were going to go everywhere, and that was good for them. Anybody? What do you want to point?
Yeah, go ahead.
You saved a lesson inside.
Right.
Yeah,
Yes.
please.
Did you want me to answer that one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Answer about approval
Okay,
process,
yeah.
because he obviously worked with you very
Yeah, it was a
closely
little different.
in terms, and especially in the beginning age of digital,
Yeah,
where you were shooting a lot because you could.
yeah.
What was that process like in terms of editing?
So obviously he was there when I was shooting him in front of me, and he liked the digital because there were no negatives. You didn't have to send it out. It was very immediate. So when we first started, he would look and say, delete, 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 go through all this, and we'd maybe pick 1 or 2. And then the next day, he'd come back up to my office and he'd be like, can we bring that one back? And I'm like, oh, no, we aren't living in like 2024 yet, so no, we cannot do that. And so once he got the idea that, oh, you can't do that, he started to pick more. So he would approve more. it was very in the moment. I mean, it was different, I guess, in that way, because we could literally sit down and do it. And so as time went on, I have like images from certain shoots. I've got like 20, 25 pictures from that shoot, whereas other ones I've got only one. So it's pretty interesting. But a funny story about that, about the approval, we were shooting a photo of him and his wife Maite, and I gotta show you what he did. Hold on. So he's behind her. You might have seen the shot. He's behind her, kind of leaning over, and she, they both look really beautiful. And we're shooting, and then someone off to the side says, "Oh, Maite's hair needs a little, zhuzhing." And so they step in, and Prince is standing behind her, and he looks at me, and I'm gonna have to hand you the microphone in a second. He looks at me and gives me one of these little, like that, and I'm like, what does he mean? I've got the camera here ready to go, and all of a sudden he does this, right behind her. He just goes like this. He's this way, and he turns and he goes, he didn't say anything. He just goes like this. Right? I'm not kidding. He loved the shot. He kept the shot for a long time. But we worked on this, the computers back then had very little memory on them, so we were constantly dumping stuff to make room because there wasn't a lot of options for backing up either. It was all very expensive. And so this little icon sat on my desktop forever. I put it there, like one of these days I gotta take it off, make sure I keep it somewhere, whatever. And one day we're going through and we're picking things to delete. I'm not gonna get that anymore, that can go, back. What's that? And I'm like, oh no. I know. And I brought it up and he goes, no, that can go. And I'm like, no. Because it was so funny. And he loved it for a long time, but it did not fit kind of how he liked to present himself at the time. So.
She's asking for the specific address, which is sustained, I think. I can remember the postcode, I guess. I don't know what else. Street
No,
number.
I can give it to you because it has been said in all of the newspapers anyway. So it was 60 Avenue Foch. It's close to the Arc de Triomphe.
And the question was, what's as a photographer, from your point of view, the favorite kind of his features that you think really stood out in terms of photographing?
Yeah. What do you think? Favorite features?
Physical features. Like most subjects, certainly his eyes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And, well, just very briefly and quickly, today I did a little tour of your wonderful city, and I was at the Hard Rock Cafe at Hyde Park. And I went in there and looked around, and sure enough, 3 of my photos were in there. It was fun to see. And one of them is Prince, the first night I photographed him, and I recorded Purple Rain. And it's this photo where he's looking right at me. And I'll never forget that moment. I was kind of frightened. I'm just in the audience photographing. So, yeah, I imagine a number of you would say a person's eyes is a pretty important feature, but maybe you have other thoughts. But certainly with regards to Prince, he would give you the side eye, he'd give you all kinds of expressions. These 2 gigantic pictures at the back here, partly because they're magnificent and partly because they're blown up so large, you can see how important the human eyes are in photography.
Now I understood the questions. Yeah, definitely his eyes, for sure. And special look sometimes. Look in his eyes. And you could feel the soul.
So I would say also the eyes. Like when I growing up a fan, it was just like, look at the stare that guy has. It's amazing. But I will say this: I have learned something from many of you about his hands, because I have taken pictures just of his hands for various things we were going to use it for that he would use for. I get a lot of commentary on that, and they are unique. So it is a feature. Maybe it would not be your first thing. But it is definitely a feature where people say, I can recognize his hands anywhere. So I think that's pretty cool.
I really think his general physique, you know, I mean, there wasn't anyone else like him, you know, and dancing, you know, he just had that dancer's body, and, you know, that really stood out for me, in the perfect sort of muscle form.
That's what I was going to say. I mean, if you're a photographer and the live stuff is reportage, the portraits are different because they're structured and so many people are involved. But when you're doing a live photo, you're capturing him as he wants to see you. Although that doesn't mean that every picture you take is going to be a good one. But his physique and the fact that he sort of structured himself as this, he wasn't a regular person. He was this amazing looking performer, and your job there was to record him as he was, which is very different than shooting Ozzy Osbourne. But this looks really Ozzy. Hi. So this is his form. This is how he presented himself, and he was very successful doing that. It was our job to record that.
Well, in my 1.5 minutes photographing him, he had this. He arrived with this sense of theatre, with the two guys that were bodyguards, and there were no other people at this party with bodyguards, and he was posing, he dressed up, and it was all very theatrical, which was part of his act, I think.
As you can see, he looked amazing and he used amazing guitars. But one of the things you always prayed for as a live photographer photographing him was if he was on a ramp anywhere near you, that he looked at you and your side of the ramp, not the other side. Otherwise you get lots of photographs of him from behind, which, though he's got a lovely behind, it wasn't quite good.
Yeah, for me, every inch of his being, literally everything about Prince, I was in awe of him. But as you said, his behind, I shot a few times on stage. But more importantly, I found myself always fascinated with his shoes. Those stilettos. I've literally taken pictures of his feet at different events and concerts down the years. And I've probably got a collection of 150 images of different shoes that Prince wore. It's a strange thing, but I mean, when he was in Spain, he came back to his first concert after his protest against the record label. He came out on a small stage, and he had his piano, and I saw him get on top of the piano. And I was standing not far away from him, and my jaw hit the floor. He did a pirouette in stilettos. This guy spun 15 times. I got dizzy just watching him do it, let alone doing it. But he was just the most incredible artist ever. Nothing comes close to Prince, in my opinion. None.
What was the question?
I have no idea, to be honest with you. Favorite what?
No.
Feature. We're still in a feature? Yeah, feature.
Yeah.
What was your favorite thing about it, visually?
Literally, yeah. Well, that's yeah. For me, I just shot in one concert, and the photographer was talking about shooting. We were shooting at one concert, and the pictures, the ones I like most is when he really enjoyed playing, singing, when this smile came out, and his smile was terrific. You know, then you really saw it's good.
Who wants to go first? Favorite memory? All right, Greg. Go. Of course.
One of my favorite memories is behind this picture here. I'll take you back. It wasn't that long ago. It was in 2014, not very far from here, actually, the Hippodrome nightclub. It was a nightclub, it's a casino now. A friend of mine worked there, and had called me that afternoon to say, Prince is coming in tonight. I said, you kidding? Yeah, I was aware he was in town, he was gigging around. And he said he's doing a small gig, very small set. He's arriving at 1 a.m. I wouldn't normally go out and do it informally and such, but I decided because it's Prince, I would, on this occasion, have a go. As you can see in this picture, see the grey jacket just down that side. It's the one thing I regret the most about the picture that made it less than perfect. It's actually one of the bodyguards. They weren't his bodyguards, but they were the security from the Hippodrome. Just as he arrived, I turned up, 2 other photographers turned up. These 4 guys came out with orange golf umbrellas. I explained some of this story last night on one show. There was 2 on one side, 2 on my side, the other 2 photographers over there, I'm over here. Just as the car draws up, I realized what was going to happen. And I said, "You're not going to open those umbrellas, are you?" And just completely belligerent. "Yeah, we are." So they did exactly that. So they created a gap, not much wider than this here. Car draws up. I'm now standing with my camera, waiting, and I've got a wall of orange right in front. You can't see anything. Same on the other side. They just open up. But they couldn't see me. So whilst I'm waiting for the car, just as it's slowly coming up, I just looked underneath, like that. 2 feet there, and 2 over there. So there's a gap in between. My plan was to go straight through the middle. I'm going to get this picture if it kills me. And that's exactly what happened. I looked again, and I saw a small platform shoe, little pump, and that was it. I knew it was my cue, and I came straight through the 2 umbrellas. In fact, this picture's quite lucky because one of the guys grabbed me, and we got into a kind of push and shove, and I fired wild with the camera down the middle, like this, bang, bang, bang. He comes past me. One of the umbrellas ends up on the ground, and as he gets to the door, he's past me, the picture's gone. He turns, and he looks at me with that smile, and he goes, "Yo, that was slick. I like that." And I think it's my only regret that I didn't get that picture of him because I had 2 guys wrestling all the way. But I came away with this one, and I'm very proud of it, and I'm very happy with it. You know?
Why don't we just go down and just talk about the images that you like, and then, because those are going to be some of your favorite moments, I imagine, whether it be your photo or someone else's here. Patrick, you can go.
Well, no pressure, but there's a lot of great pictures in here. I don't think I could pick one. There's such a cross-section of his career and our careers. I mean, if I could pick half a dozen, I couldn't just pick one. There's some lovely stuff. This portrait's beautiful. Steve's work is great. The reportage work of David is great. I mean, just so many. And David Corey, you caught him over here. That I love that black and white. There's just so many that I couldn't just pick one. I'm really happy. This is off track, but just to be part of all this. So, you know,
The basketballs.
can't choose one.
I'm the same. I think I'd pick the whole lot.
I don't have that much wall space.
You can buy the book, take away the book.
Yeah, it's really, I mean, look at the whole career of this man, and it's just, there's such a great diversity because we are all different people, shot him at different times, chose different things. He created this persona like Bowie, and, you know, he was just this guy who was full of invention, right, Steve? I mean, this was the guy. So picking one, not possible. Can't do it.
For me, I think sofas, to be honest. It's really,
Yeah, that's
just,
a lovely, yeah.
really, if I was to choose one. I also wanted to give a big shout out to a good friend of mine, Virginia Turber, who put this black and white one in the bottom right-hand corner on this side in action very early. She's a great photographer and unfortunately couldn't be here today, but I think that's a really standout image. As long, all of these are, but you know, for me, black and white is the boss, and those 2 are really nice.
And Virginia's, we have that one here framed. We have one in the rack where you can see the badge, and it says Root Boy, which I think is just so cool at the time. But I love her work. I'm sad she wasn't here tonight. But she's a terrific photographer.
Yeah.
Yes, it's very difficult to choose one. I'll mention 2 photographs also on this wall. Of course, Steve's photograph in the center here, just outstanding. All that you've done, just amazing. I'll also mention my good friend Robert Whitman, who did, I guess, I would consider the very first session with Prince. This is the shot he did in Prince's manager's home. Owen Husney, both Bob Whitman and Owen are good friends of mine because we're all from Minneapolis. And Bob wishes he could be here. He's in New York. I spent a week hanging out with him last month, and he showed me a lot of cool stuff that nobody has seen it yet, although most of it has been seen. So I'll mention those two.
I think the Robert Whitman's the earliest stuff we have on the in the exhibition, 1977, if I'm not mistaken. And so we have that one. We also have a little print from Whitman where he's holding the disco ball, which is just fabulous, very camp, great work. I am buying one. I've been talking about it. I will buy it.
Yeah, I would say that it's very difficult to make choices because it's a wide portrait of him during all these years. I love Steve's work, really. I really love the photos of Nancy, who unfortunately is not with us because she had some health problem, and the one with the red lights, because I love his look in these photos also. But it's difficult for me to do a choice because I really like a lot of them here and in the book.
So it's funny, Gobert was saying something about wanting to do studio, which, I mean, I'm certainly not going to say I didn't enjoy it because I did, but I was jealous because I couldn't do live stuff because of the limitations of the digital camera we had. He asked me to do that and found out very quickly that it was not fast enough. As a matter of fact, he accused me of being shaky, and I said, look, the microphone stand is perfectly still, you're blurry. So that was a 4 o'clock in the morning conversation where I got a little cocky, and then I was like, oops, I shouldn't have said that. As far as what I love this photo of Sophie's because that is something I saw in him a lot. And it feels so in the moment. And I just love it. And I had seen that as one of those ones, like a lot of these photos, I've seen in various places, in magazines and things, when I was a kid, in like the Purple Rain stuff in particular, or even when I was working for him, I'd see some of these live shots. And I love what people have pulled out because he put on such a show. It was actually, I think it would be difficult to capture him in a way because it moves so quickly. You know, he was just like, he was there and then he wasn't, you know, that type of thing. So I love that. One thing I will say that I love, and if there's a reason for it, of my own work, is this shot here. And the reason for that is because I found this like a year and a half ago, and I didn't realize I still had it. Because, you know, that stuff was so disorganized. And I had parts of this shoot, but not that picture, and then one other one. And so when I found it, it was like, I don't know, it was like opening a Christmas present. Like, I thought this was gone forever. And I decided to put it in the show because I liked it so much. It hasn't been seen elsewhere. But when I got it, it's like, so when you're a photographer, when you're a creative, it's difficult sometimes to look at your own work objectively. And you rely on other people sort of that you trust to tell you what's what sometimes. And that's one of the few photos I looked at and I said, wow, if somebody else had shot that, I would love it just as much. Because for myself, I'm always going to pick it apart. So I ended up really loving that. And I loved it going black and white. And I agree with you about black and white. I love the feel of it. So yeah, but I'll tell you, every single one of these gentlemen and the lady, I am super impressed with their work, and I've been, as I've said, very thrilled and honored to get to work with them. It was a weird thing. It's like in a collection, but now we've gotten to meet each other, and they're all really awesome people as well. So just so you know.
As said earlier, they're all brilliant, but my favourite is Steve's picture with the guitar neck over there, the bottom there, the eyes on that say everything. That really is Prince.
I like the basketball because I think it's more informal and it's more of an insight into the private life of who he was. I mean, we all see the stage stuff constantly, but I like the intimate inside portraits because it just shows him to be the same as the rest of us, really.
I don't want to explain too much, but that's my favorite.
Yeah,
Steve. Yeah.